It's really easy to say, yes, I open to receive miracles. But then when it happens, all of that comes up. All of that worthiness stuff comes up.
This is the Miracle Zone.
I ask, I see, I know, I trust, I be.
Hello, and welcome to the Miracle Zone podcast, where business, leadership, and frequency align. And today we're going to talk about the number one miracle blocker that I have experienced in working with people to attune to the miracle frequency and to welcome just an overabundance waterfall of miracles into their lives and into their businesses. And so I've shared in previous episodes some of the things that get between us and really tuning into the miracle frequency and calibrating to the miracle frequency. I've talked about our need to control. I've talked about our attachment to linearity and the illusions of time and cause and effect. And I've talked about our conditioning that we need to do something to earn something. But today I really want to hone in on the one that I really see is buried down deep. And this is something that we work on in the Miracle Frequency Immersion, which is starting next week. So I will include that in the links and you can check it out because it's one of the things that we do. We work with frequency, we work with rose medicine, and we work with uncovering these beliefs, these thought forms, these energetic blocks that are keeping us from opening up ourselves to being the living, breathing miracle that we are. Because when we embody that, then we naturally become a miracle magnet and they can just drop in because they're here. So check that out in the links. And I hope that you join us next week because it's going to be really powerful. So what is the number one thing? The number one thing that I see most commonly and that I really recognized in myself as well as I was doing this work. I'm going to tell you a little story. So I live in Portugal and I decided to go one day to Fatima, which is a very well-known, not just in Portugal, but globally, pilgrimage site where people will go on pilgrimage and go and visit the Virgin Mary, Mother Mary. And it's known that, well, she's very connected to working with the angels and with miracles, just like many others in these divine feminine lineages. There's always the miracle one. There's always the magician. For example, in the Kemetic, in the Egyptian lineages, we talk a lot about Isis being the magician, right? So she shows up in many forms, she with a capital S, right? And in this particular tradition, it's Mother Mary and the miracles. And so it's a sacred pilgrimage site where people come from all over the world to sit with Mother Mary and with whatever their requests are for miracles and in prayer and many other reasons. But it is very much known for miracles and people do offerings and things like that. So anyways, I decided to go one year with a friend of mine who was visiting. And because I do work very closely with Mother Mary and with Divine Mother in general in terms of channeling, and when I'm working with the miracle frequency, she's one of the keepers of the miracle council that we work with in the miracle frequency immersion. And so I decided to go there to this site, and it was really beautiful to go and visit and to see everybody coming. And I was sitting there in the sanctuary in the sacred space with people from all over the world and seeing some people coming on their knees. They will pilgrimage on their knees to come to Fatima, to sit with Mother Mary. And as I sat there, I thought I'd already been doing this miracle work for a while. And one of the things that I really speak about in the teachings is in many ways, you don't need to ask for the miracles. They appear. And sometimes you don't even know what you need. And what you need is what appears. And you're like, oh, in the appearance is when you realize what you need. And so I have formed a very loose attachment with it, an ask and you shall receive framework, which in many ways is also a manifestation framework. And so I didn't go with a specific request on my heart. I didn't go asking for a specific miracle. I didn't even go asking for a miracle. I just went to experience this beautiful place and the energy in this place, which is very strong and very beautiful. And so I was sitting there and just taking in everybody in the space and everybody making their offerings and their prayers. And I was sitting there and I was like thinking, is there something that I want to ask for, that I want to call in, and like really sitting with that? And in that moment, nothing was coming up. And so I just sat in the energy of it, just soaking up the miracle vibes. And as I was about to leave, one thing did flash in my head related to a health issue that I was having. And it was like a passing thought, like an afterthought. And it wasn't really an asking or a desiring. It was all these people are coming all around, and is there something? And this, the only thing I could think of in the moment that popped into my mind was this health thing, but I really did not dwell on it. Anyways, so I go and walk around and visit the different areas in the sanctuary with my friend, and it was a really beautiful experience. And then I came back home. And it was really interesting because I came back home, and a few hours later, actually the next day, I was standing in the kitchen and I felt like an electric shock. It was like two little electric shocks. It was like bzz, bzz, in my body, like around where my ovaries are. And I was standing in the kitchen with this friend of mine, and I said, wow. And she said, what happened? And I said, I just felt something. And she said, what? I said, it's so weird. It felt like somebody was jump starting my ovaries. It was like, bzz, bzz. And we laughed. And I said, maybe it's the Divine Mother. And we laughed, we laughed, we laughed. And then it passed, and we didn't think about it anymore. And the day progressed. And I left it at that. I didn't really think much about it at all until 3 days later, 2 or 3 days later, I'm at my home, and all of a sudden, I get my moon cycle. I get my moon cycle, which I hadn't had in months. In months and months, almost for a year, I didn't have it, and there was no reason for it. I've always had a very regular cycle. And in that particular moment in time, I hadn't had it for months and almost a year. And that was the thing that like flickered in my head as I was walking out of the sanctuary was it would be amazing to finally get my cycle because I don't know what is going on here. And then I remembered I'd been in the kitchen that time and I got that little buzzing, like jump starting of the ovaries feel. And 2 or 3 days later, I got my flow. And it was crazy. It was crazy. And I remember I picked up the phone and I called another friend of mine, and I was just started crying and crying. I was like, I got my miracle. Oh, I got my miracle. And nothing had changed except that I had gone to Fatima, to the sanctuary, and had that fleeting thought in the moment. And when I got home, there was also something else that was really funny. I have a Mother Mary statue on my altar, and she had fallen forwards. So while I'd gone to the sanctuary, Mother Mary had fallen forwards. I got home, I found her fallen forwards, and I was like, that's very strange. That energy is very strong. So I like sat her back up. And then that happened. Now, why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because the overwhelming feeling and thought that I had in that moment when I was crying those tears, so grateful that I finally got my moon cycle because I hadn't had a cycle in so long. And I was calling my friend. I was like, ah. The number one thought in my head was like, I can't believe I got a miracle. Me, you know, like, how am I worthy? How am I worthy to get this? And it's me. I work with the miracle frequencies. I talk about miracles all the time. I'm open to receive miracles. It's me. But still, in that moment of being like, oh my God, I got my cycle. My ovaries have been jump started. It was worthiness was the number one thing that came up. Why me? How me? Of all those people that are there. And hopefully it's not me. Hopefully she's blessing all of them, and it's thousands and thousands upon thousands every single day. But the question was, why me? So part of the work that we have to do is to flip that into, of course, me. Why not me? Right? Imagine something like that happens to you or happens in your business. For example, one of my clients last week told me that 80,000 euros unexpectedly landed in her account. Okay, so let's picture you're experiencing a miracle like that. What would it take for you to be thinking instead of, why me? I can't accept it. I can't. Instead, to think, of course me. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that I all of a sudden had a huge cash injection out of the blue. I'm not surprised that my post went viral and all of a sudden I have thousands upon thousands of new followers. I'm not surprised that somebody approached me with a book deal I could never even conceive of. I'm not surprised. Fill in the blank. The whole point is we can't even conceive of it because it's so ridiculous. But what would it take for us to flip from why me to of course me? Because I am a living, breathing miracle in motion. This is what I vibrate at. This is how I create in the world. What would it take? So I invite you to think about that for yourself, to think about what that edge is for you and what is too much. What could you? I couldn't. I just can't receive that. To, of course, thank you. Yes, and more, please. I'm grateful. Yes, of course. It is a very different frequency to be operating at. And it's really easy to say, yes, I open to receive miracles. But then when it happens, all of that comes up. All of that worthiness stuff comes up. And then it interferes with the flow. Because then we doubt if we're worth it. And then how much more likely is it to happen again or to happen in even larger measure? If we doubt we're worthy of this, then how can that come in? So that's my invitation to you, is to really sit with that. If that exact thing, not even that you're manifesting, but beyond your wildest dreams that you can't even manifest, landed in your lap, how would you receive that? And I invite you, if you can feel that there is an edge there, to join me for the Miracle Frequency Immersion, where we're going to sit with this. We're going to identify this. We're going to work with other blocks, other things that we've got going on in our subconscious that we don't see are blocking us from this flow of miracles in our life and our business. That's in the links. Check it out. I hope to see you. Join me, and I'll see you next time.
I trust I be.
Thank you for tuning in to the Miracle Zone. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a transmission. And if today's episode and conversation resonated, leave a review and share it with a fellow visionary leader. In the links, you can access my free Miracle Business Blueprint, the 7-part framework I use with my clients to create a thriving, scalable, and self-sustaining business that gives you more freedom, not less. Plus, you'll receive a guided process to identify where to focus first so you can spend more time leading in your miracle zone right away. Let's build the new as a collective for the collective. Together, we're not just creating miracles, we're living them. Until next time, stay in the miracle zone.